Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of ATP Live. This is in celebration of our Children's Day. And today we have a very, very important topic. We are talking about better nutrition for every child. So I hope you are all welcome. You are welcome. So today is the day we can talk about nutrition. I know it's one of our all spoiling topic, and so it's good that we have a whole day just to talk about nutrition only. So welcome everyone. Feel free to share the video and try to invite your friends and family to join us. And today's episode is brought to you by none other than Pick 456. And so I'm just going to quickly play a message from our sponsors and then we'll come back. Don't go anywhere.
When I wake up in the morning, I need something to help me start my day. So I reach out for my own milk. Go Pick 456 is what I take. I want to be strong, I want to be smart. Drink it every time. That's why I drink Pick 456. Pick 456 has DHA. It helps my brain to grow. It helps me to be smart. Oh, my own milk. Oh, Pick 456, yeah. 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 My own milk. Oh, Pick 456, yeah.
All right, welcome back again. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a special ATP Live. As you're aware, we usually do ATP Live on Mondays, but we're having a special ATP Live today. And we're going to be talking about better nutrition for every child. For those of you who are watching me on our Facebook group or our YouTube channel, you can definitely see my background and you can see the topic we are talking about. And for those of you who are watching on Instagram, you're all welcome. Feel free to share the video, and I hope people can see and people can hear me on our Facebook groups. I'm just going to quickly check that and then we can start. So the way it's going to work today, I'm just going to first of all give like a short talk. We talk about nutrition, and then after that I'm going to be taking all the questions that you may have. Okay, I can say that I'm live in the Facebook group. Okay, just checking that I'm live in all our groups and everybody can see me and you can hear me as well. So if you have any question, you can start to drop your question now. You can drop it on the video itself, on our Facebook group, on our YouTube channel, wherever you're watching from. You can drop your question, and then after that, we will answer them. Just checking that every part of our Facebook group can see the video. Just give me 1 more minute, and so I'm just sharing to our other groups like the ATP family, ATP Still a Mom, and making sure that those in those groups as well can see, and then we can start. So welcome, everyone. Final group. And as you all know, my name is Bemi Solavoyede. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm going to be the anchor for today's program. Initially, I thought I'm going to have somebody else with me in the studio, but it's okay. I'm just going to run solo today for the next 1 hour, and then we can start. All right, so thank you so much for joining me. So today we're going to be talking about nutrition. And when we talk about children, I always like to start by saying there are 2 things that are unique to children. because people sometimes tend to look at children as young adults, but pediatricians, we respectfully disagree. Children are actually unique. They are not the same as adults. They are not small adults. Okay, so there are two things that are definitely the two most distinguishing characteristics for children compared to adults. Number one, children grow. Okay, children grow. So when children are born, they are born very tiny. Most of them are weighing about 3 kilograms. And then by the time they become adults, they would have become maybe 50 kilograms, 70 kilograms, and so on. So children definitely grow. And the first year of life is one of the most rapid period of growth that any child could have, and that's children usually are born, like I said, 3 kilos. By the end of the first year, they're already 10 kg on the average. So that is adding like 7 kilograms within 1 year. So that is very, very rapid growth. So that is number one thing. And then when you're talking about growth, definitely you cannot talk about growth without talking about nutrition, because one of the characteristics, one of the things that you really need to help with that growth of a child is their nutrition. Another thing that is unique to children, apart from the fact that they grow so rapidly, is the fact that they also develop. So development is also another unique characteristic of children. And so when we're talking about development, what is development? What is growth? So when we are referring to growth, growth is just increase in size, increase in weight, height and all that. That is growth. But development is increase in, or development is about skills, the child's ability to do things they are not able to do when they are born. You all agree with me that when children are born, they are born completely helpless human being, completely dependent on another human for every aspect of their life. They depend on another human for their feeding, to move them from one place to another. But by the time that child is 1 year old, that child is now a fully functional adult who is able to move around by himself or herself. We sometimes have one or two words, and of course, by the time they're about 5 years old, they are able to go to school, they're able to read, they're able to have conversation. So again, children, apart from growing, they develop rapidly. So they develop from being a completely dependent, helpless human to completely independent human beings. So that is what development is all about. And when we're talking about development, we are talking about the brain itself, because development has to do with brain development. Most of the time, the brain is not fully formed when a child is born, and the brain is still developing itself, is growing bigger. The growth of the brain occurs in the first 5 years of life. 95% of brain growth occur in the first 5 years of life. And that is why as the brain goes, then the child becomes more skillful. They begin to develop, they begin to acquire skills, or what the pediatricians refer to as milestones, but it's all about development. So those are the two things that are unique to children. Children are growing physically, increasing in size, and children are developing, they are acquiring skills, they are achieving milestones as a result of the brain growth and becoming more specialized. That is what is happening. And so for these two unique characteristics of children, their growth and their development, one thing that is a cornerstone to all this happening is nutrition. Okay, for children to grow, for children to develop, they need great nutrition. They need their nutrition to be on point. And so it is so important for us as parents, and as we celebrate our children. We've been celebrating them since the 27th of May, and we're still celebrating them. We've done a lot of outreaches, but I think one thing we are trying to emphasize, and we're trying to talk about during this period as we celebrate our children, is to remember the importance, the importance of nutrition in terms of our children growing appropriately and developing appropriately. Because it's not just that children grow and develop, but sometimes if the right environment and the right things that are needed for that growth and development are not there, then we can have abnormal growth and we can have abnormal development. So when we talk about abnormal growth, we're talking about malnutrition. When we're talking about abnormal development, we're talking children who have some developmental delays and all that. But to avoid this, we need to make sure that all the children require for their growth and their development, they are available to them. And one of the most important things that children need for that is their nutrition. Okay, so we want our children to grow strong. We also want them to grow smart. And that is why we're talking about nutrition. So first, I'm just going to run through what's nutrition do children need, especially in the first 5 years of life, where majority of that growth and development occurs. Of course, you all know that for the first 6 months is breast milk. Okay, we've said that over and over. And in August, we are still going to celebrate the World Breastfeeding Week, the first week of August. We're still going to talk again about breastfeeding. But for the first 6 months of life, all the children need is breast milk. Breast milk is a complete food, complete in everything, including what the brain needs. So a lot of parents worry more about children growing in terms of their size and getting bigger. Very good. But we also, like I said, we're also concerned about the brain. So the brain is also as important. We only don't want children to grow bigger, but we want that brain to develop appropriately so that the children's development, which is the second unique characteristic of them, is also on course, is also normal. So that is why breast milk contains DHA, it contains everything the brain needs. It also contains everything your child needs for appropriate development. So the first 6 months of life is very easy and it is very clear. Children just need only breast milk. And then when we now talk from after 6 months, breast milk will no longer be enough. The children needs other food. Okay, so that is when we start talking about complementary feeding. And complementary feeding is not just about giving other solids, but continue to breastfeed. So for the first 2 years, we still expect you to breastfeed. We still expect you to give other food. There are different classes of food, and children needs all this food, give it in the right quantity together, not just only carbohydrates or not just only fats or energy giving food, but they need protein as well. They need fruits, they need vegetables, they need all of them given together in addition to breast milk for them to grow appropriately. But more importantly, after that, then we go on to, even when they start school, they need to still eat as well, even when they're no longer on breast milk, but they still need milk. Okay, children still need milk for the first 5 years of life, and the most appropriate time usually when we give this is during breakfast. Okay, so breakfast is one meal we need to always emphasize. It's a time for us to make sure that, because children are going to school, they are going or play group, and they're going to learn, they're going to play, so they need to have nutrition not only for growth now, but they also need nutrition for activities to supply them energy that they will need to play around with their children, which is also important for their development, for their coordination, for all the skills that they are learning in school. So we don't want children, when they are now going into school, to go hungry, tired, and not being able to do the right thing that they need to do. And so that is why nutrition is important. So I know most of you have heard me talk about breastfeeding and complementary feeding, but today I just want to remind you that it doesn't end at that point. We also need to go further and talk about the feeding even beyond 2 years, and that is even for the first 5 years of life. It's so important that children have the right nutrition. And the best time, one of the most important meal of the day is breakfast. And I know that sometimes we're living in a country where everybody is busy, everybody is running out, but as parents, who are very concerned about our children achieving their greatest potential, we should never forget that breakfast is so important for them. They must have it in the morning, and it also sets up this habit of having the right meal. So obviously they're going to eat with us in the morning before they go out, and of course they're going to have their lunch most time at school, and of course when we come back in the dates in the evening, then have the dinner. So, but remember that you are setting them out to school to engage with learning activities and all that. So you want to make sure that they have the right energy, they have the right fuel to be able to do everything that they need to do at school. And so it is so important for us to remember that, and remember that children need their milk in the first 5 years of life. It is so important. I know some children, sometimes when you're trying to get them to eat, I'm sure when we come to question and answer time, that is what I'm going to be answering a lot. But let me just try and kind of start again by saying, even when some children, like, they're fussy, they don't want to eat and they just want to play, but we all know that they need their nutrition. So we need to make sure that we still find a way of making sure that they get the food, but that we just need to be more creative in the way we package it and in the way we give it to them. Okay. And sometimes we are so fixated on the children, drinking their milk or drinking this on that, and some children don't want to do that, but there's a way you can still use it to prepare the food, and there's a way you can add it to the food. You can always work with what your children like. That's why I'm not really a fan of giving you food timetable. I prefer you know what is available in your own environment, what your children like, and then you can work with that. But the most important thing for you to know is, what are the food classes, what kind of food should be in my children's plates. Okay, so the challenge most parents have sometimes that we just focus so much on either cereals or this or that. We need to be more intentional. We need to remember that it is not just one food that we need to give. We need to give food from the different classes at all times. Number one, we need to give them energy giving food. The energy giving food, mostly the carbohydrates, your cereals, your tubers. Most of us are familiar with those ones: the rice, the yam, all of them, the bread and all that. They are all energy giving food. Our grains, different grains that we have. Then you also have, you must remember to give them protein. Okay, so the protein are the ones that they help the children to build their body. So you can have the animal protein, like your fish, your egg, your meat, even our milk also supply protein as well. And of course, you also need to have your plant-based protein, like your peas, your beans, and all that. But remember, dairy is also important. And of course, the fruits and the veggies, they are also so important. We should make sure that children always have that as part of their meal every day. So you should just make sure you package it properly. And then, of course, the carbohydrates and the energy-giving food are the biggest portion, maybe about 40 to 45%, and then a little bit of the protein, 10 to 20%. Of course, you have your dairy there. Then your fruits and your vegetables can also be another maybe 20, 35% of the food. But you need to have all of them together so that the children can have appropriate, diet. And usually when children are eating well, then they're going to grow, they're going to develop, and then they're going to be great citizens of our country in the future. Because a lot of children that struggle, in fact, most of the time, why children die, most of the cause of the death in children, we find out that malnutrition is always like underlying cause in more than half of them. In more than 50% of cases, it is malnutrition. And that is why pediatricians, we are very, very concerned about nutrition, because if a child nutrition is already having issue, then that kind of a child is susceptible to other problems. So a child who is malnourished is likely going to have infections. It's the same child that is likely going to be sick from other illnesses. So that is why nutrition. But when a child is well nourished, then even if the child is come in contact with other illnesses, the child is able to fight it. The child is able to deal with it and recover faster compared to a child who is malnourished. And that is so important to us. And so it is so important that children, are well nourished. Number one, to be, apart from the growth, but to also be able to deal with other challenges that they may face in terms of diseases, illnesses, and all that. Children who are not well nourished are able to deal with it better. Their immune system is better to fight, because the immune system also need nutrition to be able to function properly. Especially that is where all your fruits and vegetables come in, because those vitamins, those minerals are very important nutrients that the immune system needs for them to be able to function properly. So this is just to kind of give a background on better nutrition for every child. Let's not just think, oh, nutrition ends as after 6 months of breastfeeding or after 2 years. It continues beyond that. And remember that for the first 5 years, we still need to make sure that we're giving all the nutrition, not only just for weight or increase in size, but for brain development. So I'm just also going to talk a little bit about brain development. So unfortunately, we don't see the brain, or whether fortunately we don't see the brain, but the brain of a child is not fully formed, maybe about 70% at birth, but the remaining over 25%, that means totally 95% of development of that brain is going to happen in the first 5 years of life. So it's so important that the brain also have the nutrition for the brain, the things that the brain is mostly made up of fats. Okay. So the brain is made up of neurons that are covered in what we call myelin sheath. That myelin is usually made up of a lot of fats. Okay. And it's a different kind of fat. It's a kind of, that's why we call them essential fatty acids. Those are the kind of fats that the brain needs. And it is that myelination of the brain that makes the brain to function, better, to communicate with other parts of the brain for all of our function. Everything we do is actually coming from the brain. Okay, but the brain is not fully formed at birth. It's still developing, it's still growing. It needs a lot of myelin, a lot of fatty acid. And that is why one of the key important ingredients that the brain needs is what we call DHA. Okay, DHA is a form of essential fatty acid that is so important for the brain and the eyes to develop. And that is why children must have that. Luckily for us, we have a lot of it in breast milk. So when you are giving exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, your baby is going to get a lot of that. But when you now transition to complementary feeding, or even when you stop breastfeeding after maybe 2 years and your child is now on other diets or family diets, remember that your child's brain is still growing. And so you must make sure that the brain requirement is supplied. And most of the DHA, like I said, it's essential fatty acid. It's not going to come from carbohydrate. Unfortunately, many parents, when most of our diet tends to be loaded with those carbohydrates, and many of us don't tend to remember things like protein and things like some special oil that can supply that DHA, sources of DHA like seafoods and all that, and eggs, and even some fortified milk that has DHA in them. We tend not to remember, but we need to remember that the brain is still growing and we need to supply that. So it is so important that we remember what the brain needs. Of course, the brain also needs protein, and I've talked about all the different kind of protein we have. We also need iron, not the not the physical iron, but the iron is so important in blood formation. But that's what many people are familiar with. But the brain also needs iron as well to be able to function as well. And of course, the calcium for strong bones and teeth. And of course, we need all our vitamins as well. So these are all things that we must make sure that as we are packaging our children's food, we make sure that all of them, they are in there, and that the children can have access to all these things so that they can become they can grow properly, and then they can function properly. And it is so important that we get it right, especially in the first 5 years. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause now, and I'm just now going to start answering whatever question we have. So please drop any question you have on nutrition. Today is a nutrition day, and so it's a time for us to answer all those questions. But before we go on, I think we should just take another message from Pick 456, the sponsor of today's program.
When I wake up in the morning, I need something to help me start my day. So I reach out for my own milk. Go Pick 456 is what I take. I want to be strong. I want to be smart. Drink it every time. That's why I drink Pick 456. Pick 456 has DHA. It helps my brain to grow. It helps me to be smart. Oh, my own milk. Oh, Pick 456, yeah. 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 My own milk. Oh, Pick 456, yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So we can go on now to take all our questions that we may have on nutrition. I can see those who are joining us. Oseji Blessing, say keep up the good work. Thank you. Facebook user. Okay, for those of you who are watching from our Facebook group, if you don't give StreamYard your permission, I won't see your name. But obviously, you know yourself. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep up the good work. Another Facebook user, thank you. Debbie, say thank you, Ma. Thank you. Another Facebook user, thank you. And Shirley, thank you for joining us. Okay, I seem not to have any question yet from Facebook. I'm just going to go to Instagram. Instagram people, a lot of people on Instagram, but I can't see any question. Okay, I think there's one question on Instagram. Okay, somebody's asking if you can recommend a speech therapist. Okay, we're talking about better nutrition today, so try and keep your question about nutrition. But definitely we can recommend a speech therapist for you. Just send us a message on our WhatsApp or send us a DM since you're on Instagram, and then we'll send you contact details. So, but can we just ask questions that are related to nutrition, since today is nutrition day, because I know we answer a lot of nutrition issues on Monday, but I decided let's have today and let's talk only nutrition. All right. Okay. Another person said, my baby fell and hit her head. The head is swollen. I've given paracetamol. What else you do? You can just apply High Spark. That's all you can do and see. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. But try and ask questions on nutrition today. Adefulire say thank you, Dr. Bemisela. You're welcome. Okay, somebody say, how do I know my child is getting enough nutrition? Very good. Blessing, that's a very good question. How do I know? How do you measure that you are doing it right? Okay, the first thing is to make sure you are giving what you should be giving. Okay, so at least you should know what you should know your inputs and your output. So there are two ways of looking at that question. How do I know my child is getting enough nutrition? The first answer is the inputs. Okay, you can look at what you're giving the child. What should you be giving and what are you giving? Okay, the second part is the outputs. What are the things we will see to know that actually you are doing it right? So let me start by the inputs, because it's easier to measure the inputs. It's easier to know whether you are giving the right quantity or not. So for breast milk, for example, we say just breastfeed on demand. Okay, we don't expect you to pump and measure. We just give on demand, because we know that children most times will take enough, will take all they need, and then they will stop sucking when they're done. Okay, so but if you are not sure, there's a way we calculate all these things, because today is a wider program, so it's a little bit difficult for me to be telling you each of those age categories and what we calculate. For example, for a baby, we usually expect them to take about 100 mils per kg of fluids, and that's the breast milk in a day. So if your baby, for example, is weighing 5 kilo, we expect baby to take about 500 mils of liquid or breast milk. So if you are giving up to that or even more than that, then we are happy with that. So for breast milk, anyway, if a child is well, the child is sucking, it's okay to just let them breastfeed on demand. Now, after breastfeeding, then we go on to talk about complementary feeding. So complementary feeding, you need to keep breastfeeding on demand. I mean, as much as baby wants, but from 6 to 8 months, we expect you to give at least 2 to 3 meals a day, and 2 to 3 meals of like half a cup of the meal, half a cup meal. So the meal you now prepare must have something that is carbohydrates, must have something that has protein inside. Let me give an example. If you're going to make like pap, so you can make your pap. Of course, it has to be a thick porridge like kind of pap, not like watery something that you can feed with a spoon, something that if you hold it on your spoon and you turn it upside down, it's not going to drop. That is the kind of thick porridge we're talking about. So let's say you use maize, the corn to make your pap. That is the carbohydrate part. And of course, you can add something like maybe your crayfish, that will be your protein, or you want to break an egg into it, that will be your protein. Of course, you can add maybe 1 tablespoon of palm oil, that will be your fat and oil. And of course, you can add your milk. So you can either say, okay, you can actually express your breast milk and add, or you can go for an age-appropriate milk as dairy. Then, of course, you can also have fruits and veggies on the side. For example, if you can blend banana into it, or you can just give that separately after the child has taken the pap itself. That is just an example of how to make a complete meal that has all the various food classes. At least you must aim for 4 at every time. There is also, if you check on our Facebook group or our website, we have what we call the food plates. The food plates helps you to remember the portion for carbohydrate, the portion for protein, the portion for your fruits and veggies, the portion for your dairy and all that. So you can always see it and make sure you remember. So we have all those kind of plates that helps us to remember. So as long as you are giving the quantity we expect, so for 6 to 8 months, we expect them to take 2 to 3 meals a day with 1 snack in addition to breast milk. By the time they are going to 9 to 11 months, we expect you to give them 2 to 3 as well, but it's going to be like maybe a 3/4 of the plate. That is about 75 mils of that thick porridge or whatever meals you are preparing. But this time around, you are going from smooth quantity, you are going to something coarse. You are trying to also give them finger food. They can now start holding the food in their hands to eat and all that. Then by the time they're about 1 to 2 years, we want them to be having like the full plates. They can also take 3 to 4 times a day with maybe 2 snacks. So the details, we have it on our group if you go to our guide section, so you know what quantity is expected. Okay, you can also check on dietitians, all those books, they can always tell you what is the quantity. So the first thing is, are you giving the right quantity that is expected? So if you are giving the right quantity, then you are giving enough nutrition to your child, not just the quantity, but the quality, the variety that I mentioned, you are doing it. So that is looking at it from the perspective of inputs. Now let's look at the outputs. I think for us, that is what the doctors measure, because sometimes when you come to us, we ask you questions. We can ask you to do what we call a food recall, or tell us what the child has taken the last 24 hours. That is checking your inputs with you, because most time parents are fond of telling the doctors the child is eating well, and then when we have to break it down, then we found out that the child may actually not be eating well. But I want you to be conscious of the fact that what you're also giving is important, so you can check it from there. But what we normally check is your output. So if your child is eating well, you are giving all the right nutrition, we expect to see it in the weight of the child. So we put the child on our own scale, and if a child is getting good nutrition, we expect the weight of the child to be age appropriate. So by 6 months, we expect the child to have double the birth weight. So if your baby was born 3 kilos at birth, when you come to see us at 6 months, we put the child on our scale we expect the child to be weighing like 6 kilos now. So if you are getting appropriate weight, then we know that yes, you are doing the right nutrition. We're also checking their development. So is the child now able to sit? Is the child able to have neck control? Of course, we know development is not only about food. We know there are medical conditions that can affect the brain. So, but in terms of nutrition, we expect to see the child's milestones are normal. We expect to check that the child does not have anemia. The child is the skin of the child is fine. So we look for signs of what we call nutrition deficiency. So if we don't see those signs, then we know that definitely you are doing the right thing. Okay, we are not seeing like blisters on the mouth and ulcers, that might suggest vitamin deficiency and all that. Then we know that you are doing the right thing. So you need to make sure you're giving the right inputs. Then the doctors, or we can check for the output, we check for the weight, we check for the developmental milestones. If you are doing the right nutrition, then all those things will be as we expect them to be. So I've answered that question in details because I think it's a common question that parents worry about. And let me just quickly chip in at that point that we also worry about overnutrition. Okay, in as much as we want to give children nutrition, we have to be appropriate in terms of it should not be too low. It should also not be too much. Okay, there's what we call overnutrition, so children becoming obese, and we don't want that as well. We also don't want children taking junk food. Okay, because that also contributes to obesity and what we call non-communicable diseases in future, like diabetes and all that. We don't want that. So we have to make sure we're doing the right thing about nutrition. So a lot of parents, I think in the early phase, we tend to tilt towards giving too much, and when children don't take as much as we think they should take, then we start to panic. Actually, most times it's because sometimes we are giving too much and the child do not need that. Most times children tend to know when they should take and when they should stop. So you can, that's why sometimes we allow the children to lead and guide as well. So but as long as the output is showing that the child is fine, the child's weight is okay, because I've seen parents come to complain on our Facebook group that, oh, the child is not eating well. And then they tell us the weight of the child. That's why we always ask you to always tell us the weight of the child. And the weight of the child is already overweight. And I'm like, oh my, this child is eating more than enough. You actually even need to cut it down. So that is why we always check for the output as well. I just remember that I should tip that in before we continue. All right, the next question is for Afuye Damilola. Say, when can we start giving baby golden more? Okay, so let me just start by saying all the food our children need, you can get it from your kitchen, and it's better you give your children food that you make yourself and you can prepare by yourself. Is better. Okay, but if you are going to buy any product from the stores, make sure you check the age that is recommended for. Virtually all the products, all the growing up milk, all of them have their age. For example, Peak 456 is meant for children between the age of 4 and 6 years. Okay, they have the one for those who are younger if you are not breastfeeding. But if you're breastfeeding, you don't need to give any additional formula or anything. So for any product you're buying from the shops, you must check the age. The manufacturers always have the age attached to it. So all you need to do is to check on it and then you can know. But what I recommend is that we learn to make our own food for our children by ourselves. Okay, somebody say, my 7-month-old baby throws up whenever I give him milk, and I've tried different brands. Okay, for a 7-month-old, you should give breast milk. Okay, is your baby throwing up breast milk? If your baby is not throwing up breast milk, I don't know why you need to be trying brands. All that this 7-month-old still need is breast milk. Okay. Now I need to quickly come in there and say, complementary feeding is not formula feeding. A lot of mothers get that wrong because a lot of people are like, okay, I'm doing exclusive breastfeeding, and then once it's 6 months, then the next thing they want to actually do is to go to the shop and buy a formula or a brand of milk. No, you don't have to. When your baby eats 6 months, you keep breastfeeding your baby. You don't need to buy any formula. You are only adding semi-solids to the what you've been given, to the breast milk. You should keep breastfeeding as much as possible. So for this Facebook user, if your baby is not vomiting breast milk, you don't need to waste your money. You don't need to try any brand. Just breastfeed. Even when you want to give porridge and all that, you can express your breast milk and put it on your porridge or whatever you're giving your child, and it's absolutely fine. Okay, I know a lot of mothers, because when we finish exclusive breastfeeding, we are going back to work, and most of us don't want to stress ourselves expressing. So, but your baby still need milk, obviously. So some of us go and buy formula. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to do that. But the best option is to give the breast milk. And for this mom that is struggling, the baby is not even taking the formula. Baby is vomiting the formula, because some babies have allergies to some of those formula, like cow milk protein allergy and all that. Then you don't really even need to stress yourself. So you just stick with your breast milk, as long as your baby is not, which I suspect your baby is not vomiting breast milk. So it is okay to give breast milk. I hope that is helpful. Okay, somebody is asking a question. Is 13.1 kilos good for a 3-year, 5 months old baby? Okay, I guess the weight. So for a 1-year-old, we want them to weigh averagely 10 kilos, and then a 2-year-old should weigh averagely 12 kilos. So a 1.5-year-old should be weighing averagely 11 kilos, but that is average. So some babies are a little bit lower, a little bit higher. So 13 kilo is a little bit on the upper side, but I'm not going to panic about it. I'll just say make sure this baby is more active. Make sure you are not giving too much of the food as well. It's also important to balance things. I know some children like the food. But I'm not worried so much about 13 kilos, but it's definitely on the high side. It's like the weight of a 2.5-year-old rather than the weight of a 1.5-year-old. But then it's still not something to worry about. You just need to monitor that. I hope that's helpful, Joyce. Okay, let's see whether we have any question on Instagram. I'm trying to check. Okay. All right. So we're still talking about better nutrition for every child. That's okay. All right. Somebody's asking whether Golden Morn is good for an 11-month-old. It seems like I'm getting a lot of Golden Morn questions. The truth of the matter is that the people that make Golden Morn say it's from 3 years old, not lower. And a lot of mothers, there's nothing magical about it. It's just cereal. Okay, so please make your own cereal. You can use your own cereal for your child. So like I said earlier, everything has an age attached to it. So go with the age made by the manufacturer, but you can always use your own food. All right, somebody saying, can I give 6-month-old Gary, and how can you give that? Okay, that's a very funny question, and I know it's but it also brings me to a very important thing when we're talking about nutrition. Okay, so number one, I always tell mothers there's no food that a child cannot eat. Okay, let's start with that. Okay, there's no food that a child cannot eat. Okay, but what I now need to qualify it is that what we give a child also depends on the age of the child. So when we're starting, when a child is born, we start from liquid. Okay. From 6 months, we go to something like this porridge, like semi-solid. And then by the time they are going close to 1 year, we want them to take the real solid. So you cannot give a 6-month-old who is just going to start complementary feeding, Gary. I am assuming you mean a bar, like you prepare a bar, which is a real solid. I know there are others that even actually find that even too heavy for them. So definitely you're not going to start your 6-month-old on that, unless you're going to do it in a way that it will be not hard, like soft, and then you can give it obviously with your vegetable soup or something like a draw soup, which is possible to do that. So for a 6-month-old, instead of going for Gary, for example, something light like maybe semo or mala, sometimes you can do those ones. It shouldn't be like real hard stuff, so the issue is not the food per se. The issue is the texture as which you present it to the child. Okay, so a child who has been used to completely liquid diet cannot jump straight to completely solid diet. You have to go gradually. So the texture of food for a 6-month-old, we recommend mashed or porridge, not add solid. Okay, so you don't go for that, but you can do porridge for 6 to 8 months. Then by the time they're about 9 months, then you can begin to do more solid but still soft. Okay, not very hard. By the time they're about 1 year old, then they can actually be on anything you want them to be. Okay, so that is what we recommend. So so most of the time, for 6 months old, when you're starting, it's a lot of porridge. But your porridge can be rice porridge, it can be maize porridge, it can be beans porridge, it can be potato, you can do anything. Even fruits can be boiled and mashed and blended. So that's the time you do all those things. And then by the time, but then it should be thick. It should not be watery. Okay. We don't want you to give it through bottles. It's something you can fill with a cup or a plate and a spoon. Okay. Then by the time they are going to towards 9, 11 months, they can take more solid but still soft. And by the time they're about 1 year old, of course, they can really, really handle full solid. So you need to be mindful of that. So it's about progression in terms of texture. Remember, the tummy is still small, he's still handling, so you don't want to shut it down so quickly. I hope that is helpful. Somebody saying my 21-month-old has big tummy. Please, what can I do? Okay, big tummy is difficult to say on a program where we can't see the tummy, because is it really big, or is that your assumption that it's big? So it's better we see the child, or it's better you take the child to see a doctor who can actually look at the tummy. If it is truly big, then why is it big? What is swollen? Is something swollen inside, or is there gas, or is there something else inside the tummy? Because that's the next question we want to answer and what we need to do about it. So, but sometimes 2-year-olds, they can have what look like, we call it protuberant abdomen, but it's not as if they are swollen. It's just that they tend to have because of the shape of the body at that time and the spinal cord, it appears that the tummy is a little bit more in the front, and there's really nothing wrong. But it's better to see a doctor first, so that we can see the child and we can, touch the baby's tummy, and then we can tell you, okay, there's nothing wrong. We don't want to make those assumptions without seeing the child first, because also some children, their tummies being swollen may be a sign of something growing abnormally in the tummy, and we need to do something about it. Okay, so somebody saying, good evening, doc. My baby is 7 months old. My baby likes only papa milk. Yes, I've been expecting this question. With breastfeeding, I've tried different other food, but he prefers only the one I've mentioned above. I have fruits. I can't say the rest of the question. Yeah, now this is another thing I really need to say, that pap and milk is not complementary feeding. I mean, no, that's not the way I want to say it. The way I want to say it, okay, is to be the other way around. That complementary feeding is not pap and milk. Okay, because a lot of mothers just believe that pap and milk is the only other food after 6 months. No, it's not. Okay, like I just mentioned for the last question I answer, your baby can eat all food. And actually, what we want you to do is to do variety of food. We don't want to give the baby pap and milk 24/7. No, that is not going to be appropriate. Okay, so the pap and milk, you're only giving 2 classes of food. You're giving dairy and you're giving carbohydrates. I can't see fruits, I can't see veggies, I can't see protein. Of course, a little bit of protein from the milk, but fat and oil, all those are lost. That is going to give the child malnutrition. Okay, so we want you to give other food. Now, when it comes to giving other food, we need to exercise a lot of patience. Okay, a lot of mothers are always too quick to say a child doesn't like a particular food because you offered it once and then the child didn't take it that day, and then that's it. No, that's not it. Okay, you need to offer food over and over and over again. Let's say we usually say 13 times. In my own book, I would just say at least 1 week of offering it over and over again. And the first time you're offering something new, aim for 1 spoon or 2 spoons or 3 spoons. Don't aim for the child to finish a whole bowl, because sometimes this is what makes mother discouraged, because most of us want to start a child on a new food and we come with a big bowl of 200 mils of that particular porridge or new food, and then we are disappointed that the child only took 1 or 2 spoons and stopped. No, you should not be discouraged. That is real good, okay? The first time a child is trying something new, 1 spoon, 2 spoon is fine. You must learn to do things gradually. So the next time the child is going to try, the child is likely going to go maybe 4 spoon this time around, or maybe 6. That is progress. So that is how we add new food. And sometimes I think some of us, because we translate the liquid, the quantity we give in liquid, we translate it to solid. Actually, the reason why we're giving children solid is that we're trying to give them a lot of calories in a smaller quantity, okay? Because babies have very tiny tummies. Their tummy is not as big as our own. So that is why breast milk is not enough at 6 months, because the quantity of milk they will need to provide, it's not as if breast milk cannot be enough, but the quantity of volume of milk that will be required will be too much for their tummy. So they're going to just have distended abdomen. So what we're trying to do with complementary feeding is that we're trying to give them the calories they need as they get bigger without increasing the volume that they will need. So the quantity of calories that you can pack into 50 meals of porridge or pap or whatever can be more than the quantity of volume in a maybe 250 mils of milk, for example. 50 mils of pap, thick pap porridge that is well fortified, can be more than the quantity of calories in 200 or 500 mils of milk. That's the idea. So, but a lot of mothers now saying, because my baby was taking 120 mils of milk each time the child feeds, now that I'm doing complementary feeding, then the child should also take 120 mils of pap. No, the child doesn't need to take 120 mils of pap. That child still needs to take 50 mils of pap, thick pap, with all the other additives. And when you've added all those other things to it, the calories has increased. Just putting 1 tablespoon of palm oil is a lot of calories, because it is 9 kilocalories, let's say in a liter or of that. The amount of calories in the same quantity of palm oil is double that in the same quantity of carbohydrate, for example. I hope I'm not confusing you, but I don't want to go into the jargons. I'm just trying to tell you that some palm oil, for example, has a lot more calories because it is fat compared to the same quantity if you give it as from carbohydrates, because there's so much calories packed into it. So that's the idea. So we're giving a lot of calories, but we're not increasing the quantity that the child has to take. So your child is taking 120 mils of milk, does not mean the child has to take 120 mils of pap. This is what discourages mothers, okay? The quantity the child needs to take in terms of solids is going to be lots smaller compared to what the child will be taking as liquid. So that is number 1. So number 2, patience. Don't attempt to give too much at a time, and then try and give it over time. Like, children need to take their food more frequently. That's why they don't eat 3 times a day. Sometimes they eat 4 times and all that, because their tummy is small. So we need to give their food more frequently. And remember, you are still giving breast milk. So the child is still taking a lot. A 7-month-old is still taking a lot from breast milk. 80% of the food is still the breast milk, but you are only having the solid. And we have to do it gradually. We have to do it patiently. And remember that they don't need as much quantity of that same food in like what they would take if it is liquid. Okay, so if you do it that way, they will get there. And don't be in a hurry to give too many new foods at the same time. Aim for 1 new food per week. 1 new food per week, and then go from there. Remember, you have to keep offering that 1 new food for the whole week before you can say the child doesn't like it. So don't do it once and throw it away and then go for the next one. It won't work. Okay, so I hope that really helps. And the child is not really preferring something. You just have to be patient and keep offering it until the child will now be able to, try other things. Of course, some children will still not like some food because some children don't like, that's it. If you have tried for 1 week, child is like, okay, it's fine to let that go and try something new. There are so many variety of food, and there are a lot of food. If you go online, lots of groups that talk about baby what's it called, recipes for baby food, how to mix your baby's food. Some babies, just for example, during your potato with butter, for example, can make a whole difference. Some of us do food that some of us, even with taste, you won't like it. Okay. So I always tell mothers, always says the food you're giving your baby. Some of us don't add salt. Some of us don't want to add sugar. I know that we're trying to be careful. We don't want you to add too much sugar. We don't want you to add too much salt, of course, but it must have taste. A food must have taste. Some people prepare pap for babies, no sugar, nothing, no dates, nothing to sweeten the pap, and then they complain that the child doesn't want the pap. I also would not like that pap. Okay, so why would the child like the pap when you yourself you know, like some people cook food without salt? How will you expect the child to eat that kind of food? So everything is about moderation. It's not about what you yourself you will not like to eat. So we have to be conscious of that. And I think that is because of all the wrong information parents get. And that's why it's important to listen to dietitians, nutritionists. I think we brought nutritionists before, pediatricians talk to you about these things. If not, if you listen to your fellow mothers, sometimes they're going to give you the wrong information. And I know that in our eye center, sometimes they do food demonstration. Sometimes for children, just taking away peeling the beans before you cook it, because it is that back of the beans that make children to gas a lot, and some of them don't like it. Just peeling the beans and cooking it soft and all that is all that you need. So sometimes we just need to make a little bit of adjustment here and there, and and the children will just love the food. But I know it's a lot of time, and I'm not belittling the fact that it's a lot of effort. And most of us like ready-made things. You just want to give the child the food and the child just eats it and we all move. It doesn't happen like that all the time. So just be patient and try your best. Okay, I know our time is running up now. We'll just answer the last few questions and we can round up for today's program. Somebody said, I don't know whether you answered my question. My phone went out. Okay, Z Classic. What was the question? Yes, I just answered your question now. I hope you listen now. Okay. Somebody is asking, Lord, I jumped over that question. Yeah, Z Classic, I just answered your question now. Some Adebola is saying, maybe it's running temperature. Give her first pap yesterday. Adebola, how old is your baby? It's always good to start with the age of your baby. Okay, but it is not the pap making the baby to run temperature. I can assure you that. Okay, pap does not make babies to run temperature. Your child is ill. You can take to the hospital and let the doctors. You can give paracetamol. Do you have a paracetamol? I mean, do you have paracetamol syrup at home? You can also check temperature as well. Okay, somebody is asking, Khadija say, my baby doesn't take all those protein you mentioned. He only takes fried egg and not boiled egg. Okay, fine. It's okay. At least the baby is taking fried egg. So, but let me just answer that part about there are other ways to hide food. Okay, some parents say my child doesn't like taking vegetable, doesn't like taking this protein. Sometimes you have to do it in a different way. For example, you can blend your chicken and mix it with your pap, and the child will not know there's chicken inside. Okay, you don't always have to give it like chicken on its own or give meat like meat on its own. Sometimes you can have to blend it, you can have to add it inside the food, and the child will never know. So especially for fruits and veggies that children don't like, the best option is you can make it into smoothies. You know that your fruits, if you make it into smoothies and you add milk, the children will think they are taking ice cream. Honestly, have you tried banana with milk? They will think it's ice cream. They won't know they are eating banana. Okay, so you just have to be creative. I know, and there are lots of resources online on how to do all that. In fact, I've seen people do like fruits, like all those watermelon. They make it like this lollipop. They just put all those fruits on top, and children will be eating. They will think they're taking lollipop. We just have to be creative with the children. And I don't know why most children don't like veggies, but we as parents, we have to be creative with hiding those food in their diet. Okay, I think I've answered all the Instagram questions. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay, now let's just answer the rest of Facebook and then we can close it for today. Yeah, okay. Somebody's asking, can a 10-month-old take tea over tea Milo? No. The answer is no. The only beverage you want babies to take before 1 year is milk and water, okay? From 6 months, they can take milk. They can take other milk apart from breast milk, but the only other beverage they can take is water. All those other drinks, they are not good. They are not healthy for children below the age of 1 year. So they don't need any other beverages before 1 year, apart from milk and water. Somebody, Idoko, say, what will you say for a 6 month old who can stay up to 10 minutes after eating without crying for another food? Okay. Yeah. Loretta is asking about 6 months. So baby crying is another. I think I need to take a whole day on that question alone, because mothers, I don't know why we always assume that every crying of a baby is hunger. It is not. It is not. Babies cry for 1,001 different reasons. Sometimes they even cry when they are bored. They cry when they are happy. They can cry when they want to sleep. They can cry when they are wet. They can cry when they are tired. They cry for hundreds of reasons, okay? Because at that age, they don't have any words. So the only language they speak is cry, okay? Even when they just want your attention, they cry. They just want you to hold them, they cry. They're having any discomfort, they cry. They want to pass through, they want to pass urine, they can cry. So every cry is not hunger. I hope that will deliver a lot of mothers from guilt, because a lot of mothers will tell me, my baby has eaten a lot of food. I mean, the baby has eaten so much, the tummy is so distended, the baby is even vomiting the food. And the baby is still crying, and the mother is saying, oh, my breast milk is not enough. Oh, come on, the baby is vomiting all the milk. Your breast milk is more than enough. So it is not always about food, okay? Every cry is not food. So if you have just given a 6-month-old food, and you are sure you give enough quantity, like you are sure, I'm not sure what you give, whether it's breast milk or whether it's porridge. If you're giving enough quantity and that child is crying, look for other reason. It is not food, okay? I mean, you can actually feel the tummy is big. You can see that the food is inside that tummy. You are sure of the quantity you gave. If the child cries after that, it is not food, okay? The child may just actually want to sleep. Maybe the child is overfed as well. So crying is not synonymous with hunger. I think that's the point, bottom line. That's the point I'm trying to make. Every cry is not for food. I know most mothers always go for food first, because maybe it's easier for us to just give the children food and then we know we've done that. No, food is not the only reason why babies cry, okay? So look for all the reasons. If the child are just eating in 10 minutes, the child is not hungry. The child is looking for something else. So I hope that is helpful. All right. Thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Blessing. Somebody did ready to boil fruits like pineapple and banana before blending. No, you don't. Most of the fruits, you don't need to boil them. Really, you don't. You don't need to boil banana. You don't need to boil pineapple. The ones that people tend to boil are the hard ones. People things like apples and carrots and all that. Some people boil them so it can be softer, then you can blend it. But you don't need to do that for banana. Banana, you just match it or blend it. Even the same thing. For pineapple, you need to, I think it's easier if you just extract the juice rather than, because it's a little bit, it has a lot of all those spiny pigs things that can hurt the baby's mouth. So you want to avoid that. The same thing with any fruit that has seeds. Your watermelon and other, you need to remove all the seeds. Some of them you need to cut them into very tiny pieces, or you need to blend them. You need to be very careful with fruits for babies, especially for babies that are still less than a year. You have to be very careful. So that's why some people prefer to blend them, but you don't have to, and you don't have to boil them before you give to the child. All right. Thank you so much for your good work. Thank you. I think that is the end of today's program. I really want to thank you all for joining us today. Like I said, today is a special ATP Live because it's our Children's Day celebration. And on ATP, we've been doing outreaches in all the various communities. I think today when Imo, Sokoto, and Taraba State, we've been all together now in 31 states in Nigeria. If you want to see all the pictures or the videos, just check our Instagram page, our Facebook pages. On the featured post, you will see all the beautiful, beautiful pictures. And we celebrate all our children every year, May to June, and that's what we're doing, and that's why we brought you this special ATP Live as part of that celebration. Kindly sponsored by Pick 456, who are also been with us on the field in some of our locations as well, giving the children milk, nutritious milk. Pick 456 is a growing up milk. It has all the DHA, protein, iron, everything that your babies need for optimal growth. So for some of you that struggle with babies that don't want to eat and you're not sure they are getting all those essential nutrients. Another way of giving them so easily is by actually giving them a growing up milk, like Pick 45 says. So on Monday, I'll see you again for another fresh episode of ACP Live, where you can also ask your question. Somebody is asking whether it's good to add palm oil. Yes, you can. Palm oil, pap is not for a 3-month-old baby. A 3-month-old baby should be on exclusive breastfeeding. So don't give pap to a 3-month-old. A 3-month-old should be on breast milk only. There's no advantage in starting pap so early. I'm rounding up, but that question is so important. So I just have to pause my closing remarks and answer that question. There's no advantage in giving pap. I know a lot of mothers don't, they just believe that it's not true. I see you all the time arguing with me, but really you are causing more problem for that baby. Give the right thing. You may think you are being wise giving your baby pap. Your baby is going to be sick. You are going to end up in a pediatrician. You're going to end up spending that money you think you don't have. Whereas you just need to eat the pap yourself and give your baby breast milk. Your baby will be protected against infection, and that is the best thing for your baby. So no pap until 6 months, please. Okay, thank you. I can round up my my closing remarks now. So thank you to Pick 456 for sponsoring our show today, and I will see you guys next week, Monday, for a fresh episode of ACP Live. Thank you. And
when I wake up in the morning, I need something to help me start my day. So I reach out for my own milk. Go Pick 456 is what I take. I want to be strong. I want to be smart. Drink it every time. That's why I drink Pick 456. Pick 456 has DHA. It helps my brain to grow. It helps me to be smart. Oh, my own milk. Oh, Pick 456, yeah. 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 My own milk. Oh, Pick 456, yeah.
all right, bye everyone.